feeling good, can I tell?
Okay, here we go.
Okay, Hotel family, my name is Brother Ray. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. Can we bring it close to the people right here? No, on the thing. And just, no, you just, yeah. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. We meet here every other Wednesday in honor of William Mackey Jr., Amos Wilson, Louis Ray Rivera, Elhaj Malik Shabazz, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Ivan Van Sertima, and all the historians, Mr. Leona Maddox, Brother Harold, Brother Assad, and all the historians that gave up fame and fortune to keep lectures going in honor of Miss Leona Maddox, the queen of the United African Movement. She had an old car. She worked in Teaneck, New Jersey, and she drove that old car all the way to the UAM because she believed in bringing people together for the lectures. And that's what I am about, education and bringing people together for the lectures. So that's why we meet. Because now, you know, it's YouTube, you don't have to get in. So we're going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection. These books over here, no, keep going. These books, in honor for Sababu, in honor of Amos Wilson, we have these books are to help Sababu continue the work of African World Info Systems. We have Blueprint for Black Power, Amos's classic, The Psychology of Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat Toward a Reclamation of the African Mind. Black on Black Violence, the psychodynamic of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. So you have people that talk about black on black violence, and they never read Amos. And it's the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. So in our brains, we are still being dominated. And we still have total self-hatred. Amos's classic, The Falsification of African Consciousness. And you can see the falsification of African consciousness everywhere. Our politicians and our other people, they're conscious, but it's false. In honor, can we bring the camera over here, Louis Ray Rivera. In honor of Louis Ray, his classic, Jazz in Jail. We don't never want to forget Louis Ray Rivera because when Professor Mackey passed away, Professor Mackey passed away, Brother Louis Ray came up, and he used to speak down here for hours. And he lived a block and a half away, and we would close the place up, and he would talk for another hour and a half. He was the best. Knew my whole family. So this book, Jazz in Jail, is honor for the great Louis Ray Rivera, who we miss very much. So we're going to bring back over to the books. We have The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child, Amos's classic, Awakening the Natural Genius of Black Children, African-Centered Consciousness versus the New World Order, S.K. Gabnian, Distorted Truth and the Bastardization of African Cosmology. We have those books for the listening audience to get education. But first, I want to give the people that came out, give yourself a great big hand for coming out and supporting the Mackey's group. And I want to give our Zoom audience a great big hand for participating in the William Mackey Jr. History Club. So I'm going to name a few books for you to get, purchase through Amazon, We have the Amos collection here, and we have a few other books here if you want. In honor of Brother Trust Graham and Louis Ray Rivera, we have Max Delmont, Jews, God, and History. And when you read this book, you'll see how stuff was just made up. In honor of Big Harold, the transfer agreement, untold story of the secret pact between the Third Reich and Jewish Palestine. Our good friend Harold, who left us too soon, we have this book in his honor. Dr. Randy Short, Slavery Mastery. Dr. Randy Short, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. Right, go back there and get Jews or the Problem Genie's book. Cynthia McKinney, her book, When China Sneezes, From the Coronavirus to the Global Political Economics. This is in honor of Cynthia McKinney, who through orders of Jews and white folk, they got rid of her, and black folks was involved in it. The Shadow Party, how George Soros, Hillary Clinton, and the 60s radicals seized control of the Democratic Party. This is an excellent book. Capitalism on a Ventilator, the impact of COVID-19 in China and the U.S. All this information, books that we have to read to actually see what's going on. From medical marijuana. Medical marijuana, where everywhere we see weed shops coming up and people just acting all crazy. Well, this book has a picture of George Soros on page 48. The man behind this weed and all kind of people doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff in our society. Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of Black Civilization. Now, Dr. Scott Whitaker, his book, Medicine. This brother's out of Atlanta, Georgia, and he has an excellent publication called Medicine. You read this book, you'll get a lot of information on plant-based and other stuff. We have this book here to help Dr. Scott. Everybody's talking about reparations. In this book, Without Sanctuary, Photography Lynching in America. They have the pictures. Can we try to zoom in? They have the pictures of blacks hanging from bridges, the postcards, hanging from trees in the South, the atrocities that we had to suffer. And the funny thing about this book, not everybody hanging was black. Let me tell you something right now. When you get the book, you'll see. Not all the pictures was black. So when you talk about reparations, I don't think they got this book. They should give up the money automatically. You don't need no stuff. Okay. Edward Down, Causes Unknown, The Epidemic of Sudden Death Syndrome, 21, 22, 23, 24. Dr. Edward Down wrote this excellent book, so you need to get these books to get the information that you need. Senator Rand Paul, new book, Deception, The Great COVID Cover-Up. This is a big book, almost 500 pages. I'm starting to read it and, oh man, just ridiculous. So we have these books for educational purposes. Bk-Mackey, in his blockbuster, Jews Are the Problem. We want to give Bk-Mackey a big hand on this book. It's a small read, media censorship, food shortages, gas prices, congestion prices. And what the genie did is, it's a small book, but the stuff that you have to read to do the research with education is unbelievable. We have 3 blockbusters right here. all from presidential candidate Robert Kennedy Jr. One of them is The Real Anthony Fauci. The second book, Vax and Unvax, Let the Science Speak. And the third book, The Wuhan Cover-Up, The Terrifying Bio-War Race Arms. All of these were bestsellers. And if you like reading, you get the book, and you read, and you get the information that these people are talking about. So we have these books for educational purposes and for the listening audience to really do the research, because there's a lot of things happening. And to be honest with you, I can't even say it because the freedom of speech is starting to be taken away. So you have to get into the books to read it. So now we're going to have some community events and activities for the listening audience and our Zoom audience to get educational purposes and do your research. Every Thursday on YouTube and Facebook, you have Thorough Black Talk. Tag Keisha, Brother Ashe, and Brother Black, and Sister Mar, a.k.a. Sister Marcia. That program is the hottest show on the East Coast. Our Philadelphia connection with our great sister Empress Chi, Brother Lumumba, and our Philadelphia family, Blog Talk Radio. That program comes on every Saturday at 10:30. And get your pen and pencil. The number is 1-319-527-6189. And they're even now going to be on Zoom. So that's an excellent, and you can call in and join in on the conversation. Bk-Mackey, Sankofa Revolutionary Radio out of Birmingham, Alabama. Brother Bk-Mackey comes on every Monday from 10 to 11 on Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. That's WSYP 95.1 out of Birmingham, Alabama. That program is from 10 a.m. to 11, and you can actually call in and get in on the conversation. And he talks about his book and all the other books, War on the Horizon, that he's written and published. So Bk-Mackey and the Money Tree Publishing, you can get that book. And I also have a few copies here for the listening audience that supports Mackey's. Our Baltimore connection, Powerhouse, out of Baltimore. Brother Darren Muhammad, State of the City. Darren comes on sometime Wednesday, sometimes Thursday, but Saturday at 12 o'clock is a blockbuster program, and it comes on Instagram under State of the City, and it also comes in TuneIn Radio. Glenn Burney out of Baltimore, and on YouTube. So Darren Muhammad is laying it down, and there's a lot of information. It's there. Every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, Dr. Aline, your immunity program starts at 7 o'clock, and that's Dr. Aline comes on, and that's a Zoom meeting, comes on 7 o'clock, and he brings up a lot of issues that we ought to know about medically. So we have that. Now, our Newark, New Jersey connection, African Echoes, out of Newark, New Jersey, has a study group, and they come on Fridays at 8 o'clock. Brother Trust Graham, Brother Danny, Brother True, and the brothers Bruce out of Newark, they come and they're doing the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward a reclamation of the African mind and trust. And the brothers out there on Friday at African Echoes is doing an excellent job. So they're on, and they can put the information in the chat so you could join in on that study group. And then not only, this is how deep they are. Fridays at 8 to 10, they not only do that, they give you a double header. Saturdays at 1:30, the Know Thyself study group out of Asbury Park, Brother True and the gang, they also have a study group, and Trust is the mediator, and they're doing the destruction of black civilization. So we have that. Now, the Semotap organization, and I want to thank Dr. McIntosh for having an excellent program today with Dr. Lewis and Brother Boatwright out of Detroit, and Dr. Goldman, I think his name was Goldman if I'm not correct, but they was talking about what's going on in Africa. You hear everything about what's going on in Gaza, Giza, whatever you want to call it, Eza, Leza, Sleeza, but we don't know what's happening in our motherland. They're going to keep that from you. So, the Minefield program on WBAI with Miss Richard Dean, Dr. McIntosh had an excellent program today getting into that, and that comes on every Wednesday from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock on WBAI. Excellent program. Now, I'm going to say one more thing. They also have on April 24th, Mumia turned 70, and they're having a rally in Philly at the Octavius Center, Southside City Hall in downtown Philly. The doors open at 6 o'clock. It's going to be at the Walter Memorial AME Church, 609 Clifton. And that's going to be in honor of Mumia, who's 70 years old, and he has stood the test of time, and he gave up a lot. So they're going to have a freedom rally for Mumia. Also, the Semotap organization and Dr. McIntosh is going to have a program, and he talked about it today on the Minefield on Netflix. And these folks who came up with this program actually disrespecting black folks big time. Semotap emergency meeting, how and why and how we must respond to the Netflix and Seth MacFarlane Good Times attack on African people. They're going to have a host of speakers, Omar Wally Clay, Dr. Gilman, Karanga, Ms. Mayat, Dr. Browder, Malefi Asante, Attorney LeGrand, Ms. Betty Dobson, Brother Kabuna, if I got it right, is going to be mediating that. And I have the information, I'll put it in the chat, and this is going to be Saturday the 27th. On Zoom. Now also, African Echoes and the African Echoes organization on that same date is giving a tribute to Amos Wilson and Brother Sababu. The partner of Amos is going to do speaking, and let me find it, and that's going to be in Clinton Street, downtown Newark. I'm trying to find it now. And that's given by the African Echoes organization. So I'm going to find it. Brother True, you got the information there? Brother Bruce? But African Echoes...
It's not, I think it's Clinton Avenue, first off. That's where we had our last function, not Clinton Street.
Okay, so it's Clinton Avenue, and it's going to be Saturday at what time?
27th.
The 27th, and they're giving a tribute to Amos Wilson. Brother Sababu is going to be the mediator, and that's going to be good. So it's a lot of events happening. At least we could try to make part of each event so we could get the information. Dr. Lewis. So those are just some educational information that you could find out. If you want to go through to see the Mackey's lectures, go to Bk-Mackey Jr. on YouTube. Dr. Lewis and his blockbuster series on Africa and Burkina Faso. You could go on there and study it. So without further ado, we also want to thank our good friend, Dr. Arthur Lewis, from coming down and supporting the Mackey group with his doctoral series, ladies and gentlemen. Give a great big hand, and on the handouts, I'll make some copies if you want to. When you go through, I'll make some copies and give you the copies. Give you a great big hand to Dr. Arthur Lewis.
Okay, good evening. I would like to extend my appreciation to everyone in attendance here at Mackey's to the Three for participating and giving me an opportunity to speak to you. And I want to extend my appreciation for those who are on the Zoom. And as with all of the other presenters, I'm here to make a contribution to the African community as it relates to information. And each of us who are given the opportunity to present to you, present different variety of material so that we can get a exposure to a number of things. And I'm going to make this presentation a continuation of the series that we're doing on what we call the Sahel. The Sahel, as you know, is in Africa. Africa, to give you a perspective, so when we talk about the Sahel, individuals say, well, what does it mean? Sahel is just a designation that means a semi-desert in a particular area. It's not a complete desert in the sense that it does get a certain amount of rainwater in a particular period of time, therefore you get some vegetation. So if we were to look at Africa, we're talking about the Sahel. Now the Sahel is in Africa, so people who do not have a map in front of them or chart will say, well, what is the Sahel? When you look at a map of Africa, as you have here, and I'm going to walk over to the map here, just to illustrate in the map the area we call the Sahel. The way this map is laid out, this area here is designated as Africa. It is the second largest continent on Earth, the way they designate division of land, the continent. Asia is number 1, Africa is number 2. It's approximately 12,000 square miles. 12,000 square miles. You can take the United States, the reality of the way maps are drawn, there's a certain amount of distortion. But you can take the United States, 3,000 square miles. You can take China, 3,000 square miles. You can take Australia and Europe. United States, Europe, Australia, and China, and put them into Africa. That's how big it is. From north, this is north to south, the distance is about 12,000 miles, which is like going to California and then coming back. In this landmass, you have geopolitically 55 independent countries in Africa. You can cut Africa up into different parts. So if we were to slice Africa in half, north to south, we're talking about that area north of the line that cuts Africa in half. That line that cuts Africa in half, you have these countries here. These are the areas at which we've been running the series on called the Sahel. If we were to take this area, the northern half of Africa, and further cut a line between these two landmass, you have the Sahara Desert. In the Sahara Desert, you have 5 countries that are located above the Sahara Desert. These countries are Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, and Egypt. If these countries are above the Sahara Desert and below the Sahara Desert, in this strip, you have what they call the Sahel countries. That would indicate that would be Sudan, Chad, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, and Senegal. This strip. In the series we've been concentrating on is this strip called the Sahel. These nations, why? Because there have been change of government, you call it a coup, and these governments have rearranged themselves into organizations. So a designation that I consider, when I see the word Sahel, you have these nations that are below the Sahara Desert, and you have these 5 nations above. So technically there are two Sahel sets of states. Those above the Sahara Desert, those below the Sahara. We're concentrating on the ones in the central because there have been coups. What makes them similar? They have what they call military replacement of the leadership with young individuals in the last 2 or 3 years. These countries are restructuring the way these 3 countries are running. To give you an example, if you say you wanted to restructure the way the United States of America is run, then you would have to put in leadership a group of human beings that's not white. Because it's the white male right now that runs the United States of America, domestic and foreign policy. If you're going to do a real restructuring, you'd have to remove these white people and make a mixture of the people who presently live in it. That's a radical restructuring. You would have to take your tax dollar, which 1/3 of your tax dollar in the United States goes to the military, 1/3 goes to the medical profession, and the rest of the 1/3 gets sprinkled around. That's why in the United States the infrastructure and so many other things are not maintained. So then you would have to restructure that so that 2/3 of the money would not go to the military and would not go to the medicine. You would stretch it out and you would have departments where the money is more evenly divided. People say, you would do that if you could? Then you could say you're living more in the democracy. That's how radical these countries have been. And in each instant, these particular Sahel countries we concentrated on the 3 were all former colonies of the French. And they have restructured it, the country. And we're dealing with that restructure. Like we gave an example of how you would have to restructure the United States if you talk about restructure. So in the handout, you have 5 sheets. We're going to go through that 5 sheets. I'm going to read from them because that's the way I do the presentation, so that those individuals who do not have the paper can hear. So I will read and make comment, and this way it gives you material so that we can discuss it. You have 3 pages. The middle page is a map. So presumably we should be able to present the material within a half an hour, so that we want to use most of the time with question and answers. When we take a break, there's a book that I would like to introduce you to and read from a few paragraphs, but this particular book and the subject there I do not want recorded on that video because we don't want any trouble with the government of the United States for what that book is. So we want to give them any excuse. Okay. So now you know what we're talking about. When people say you're Pan-Africanist, my understanding, the way I live, is assume you're in a family. Let's assume you're a husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend. Regardless of the title, you're a man and a woman together, not a man and man together, not a woman and woman, and you have children. Your primary job is to take care of that family, whatever you talk about. That's your primary job. Then, once you're taking care of that family, then you can then branch out to work with your local community. And you keep branching. And my definition of Pan-Africanism is, if you and I had to go to any one of these countries, or if you had children and a female companion, wife or girlfriend, and you had to relocate them there, you would want your family to have all of the amenities that most human beings should have, that you enjoy here. Place to sleep, you can't sleep in the elements. Public health is three things: clean air, sewage and potable water not mixing, and you want organic food. In this country, everybody ate organic before 1980, because that's when the people who run this country decided to poison the food with all of this pesticide. Because of the pollution of the air and everything else, your air is poor, there's pollution, you're now eating poison food that's not organic. So if I were to leave, you go to any country, you want to live someplace and say, is there water, potable water I can drink? Yes. Is there a place where I can separate the sewage? Yes. Is the air fresh? Yes. Food, air, and water. That's what makes for public health, which you don't have in the United States for all intents and purposes, at least not in the city. So that's what I would consider. If I were to have to live in any of these countries, I want to go to a country where the people who are running it, not running it for a handful of people, and make sure that there you have a good water system where people can get the water. You have sewage. You have a place where they can eat organic food, and that's what I consider Pan-African. If we were running the country, it's your responsibility to take care of the people the same way you would take care of your family in your apartment or your home. You want sewage disposal, you want good water, you want a good shelter. And that's what, when you visit or go to any country here, and you got it here in the United States, that's what to me makes a government called Pan-African. Pan-African means, oh, we're going to all work together. You have to live. And what is missing in these countries are just those things. Africa has 65% of the arable agriculture in the world. How could you have 65% of the farmland and somebody on the TV here says Africans are starving? They're not starving. The picture they show you. But they don't tell you, this continent, why is this continent important? That's what we had to deal with the radio last night. It is from Africa that Europe and big China, without Africa, would not exist. Europe and China are equal. They cannot feed themselves. Within the borders of what is big China, and within the borders, they don't grow enough food to have quality nourishment. So what is it that the relationship between Africa and Europe, I use it, of course, the United States, and Africa and big China, to this day, we're not looking back on what it used to be and what it will be in the future. Europe and China get these 8 things every day, 24 hours to make a run. You think energy, gas, oil, coal, and wood. Whatever these things are used for here and here, They get it predominantly from Africa. The other 4 is food, fertilizer, minerals to make things, and uranium. And when Niger made their coup and they cut off the uranium to Europe, to France, the uranium coming from Niger is running the electricity for 1/3 of Europe. So when people ask you what is Africa's importance globally, you just tell them those. China could not exist without Africa. Okay. So that's the context of which we're going to put it. So let's go through these 5 pages. And usually I'll tell you what's on page 1. And I presented this over and over, but I want to keep presenting. It takes 2 minutes. But I'm cutting it down so that they can listen. It's Smedley Butler's. The Smedley Butler's War is a Racket illustrates how the United States of government works on an international and national thing. And see, when he tells you here whether you or the masses of so-called American are included in this. This is how the government works. Has worked since they started slavery and still works this way. He says war is a racket. War is just a racket. A racket, you have this, but I'm jumping through it, but we want them. Racket is described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to be to the majority of the people. They tell them, you're not part of this. A handful of corporations and the white Anglo-Saxon shape and run the domestic and foreign policy of this country. You got not a damn thing to do with it. It seems that it's a mystery to the majority. Only a small inside group knows what it is about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the masses. When we go to page 2, he'll give you the illustration of it. I wouldn't go to war again, as I have done, to protect some lousy investment of a banker. Identify one of the groups of people who run. There isn't a trick in the racketeer bag that the military is blind to. It has the finger men. Those are people who tell you who's the bad guys. To point out the enemy. They have the muscle men to destroy the enemy. They have the brain men to plan war and preparation, and they have the big boss super nationalist capitalists. That's the 500 to 1,000 big international businesses in this country that run the domestic and foreign policy. That's what we start telling you. There isn't a trick in the racketeering book that the military gang is blind to. We're jumping down here. To the last paragraph. I help by now telling you what he had a rank of a general in the Marines. Right. So he's seen it. So he's telling you, this is my experience of how this country runs. And you ain't got anything to do with it. And he says, I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for American interests in 1914. They're stealing the oil. Where the United States get most of their oil during 1900? Pennsylvania, Texas, stealing from Mexico, stealing it from Venezuela. So he's telling you, we're stealing the oil for this company, not you. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National Bank. And you can read about the history of Haiti, their occupation, etc. I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. When you go through, that's why they don't teach you history anymore. The record of racketeering is long. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers, 1909 to 12. Where have I heard that before? I brought light to the Dominican Republic for America's sugar industry in 1960 in China to help see it through. The time that he's dealing in China is when the United States joined the UK or England. In the first Opium War, United States and England, they went into. And in the second Opium War, United States, England, and France, they ganged China. That's what he's referring to. Okay, we go on to the second page. The second page is a condensation of an article I read before, but I'm reading it again to give you the context so you could see. U.S. Congress, this is dealing with how the United States government is run. Why I concern the United States government? Because you live here. And because they are the major troublemaker and problem in the world now and has been for the last 60 years. That's why. And this is the title, you can look it up. It says, U.S. Congress literally doesn't care what you think. So, some of you have the full thing, but this is the essence. Professor Martin Gillen, Princeton University, and Benjamin Page, Northwest University, looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer a simple question: does the government represent the people? Data from 20-year 2000 public opinion survey. Policies that ended up becoming law. Who's making the laws? Federal, state, and city. The opinion of 90% of the Americans have essentially no impact at all. You listen to radio, is Biden good or Trump good? No, come on. Public opinion has near zero opinion impact on the U.S. law. Money, the main influence. They say the United States government and the people who run you are in the grip of corruption. Money to Congress, to the billions they give, and money to their donors, to the trillions. That's why $1 trillion go to the military-industrial complex, the Pentagon, and the Congress. They split 1/3 of tax money. The medical profession, which kills 700,000 people a year by their statistic, they take the other third, and you fight over the crumbs. Let's go to the right-hand side of that page, too. Eisenhower, the president, he coined, or at least they give him credit, coining, there's 6 words up there. He introduced to the public the top 3. He said the United States is military, industrial, congressional complex. He's saying that's who's going to take most of your tax dollars, take up most of your youth, and that the country is not going to spend on development or anything, but your money is going to be taken by these 3 entities, the military, industrial complex. Some of the people who also write blog, they added to the 3. What did they mean added? What are these additional 3 things dealing with you? The academic, they're not educating you. The intelligence agency, that's your CIA and your FBI. They kill off your leaders during H. Rap Brown and rest of them. That's what their job is. And the media, the news media. That's why people, they don't know this material, so we present it. Then the question I ask, what are you? This country, what is this country? Is it a monarchy? Monarchy means you have a king telling you what to do. They got rid of that. Is the United States a democracy? By definition, a democracy is when each one of us get to actually put input into how the laws are made. But these professors already told you, you don't give a damn what you. Federal, state, and city, all the laws are passed by not you. So you're not a democracy. Are you a republic? This country is a republic. The republic means that they set it up so that a handful of people will make the rules. But those handful of people represent you. So whoever congressman is here, the senators here, they structure it so that one congressman and senator is supposed to represent what you want, which you know you can't because he can't listen to it. And the previous study is saying that it is the money from these corporations that go into your city councilmen, that go to your state senators, people, and go into Congress. They make the laws. Those group, your representative, your state, local, and federal representative make the laws for you. That's what you're in the republic. And they tell you all the laws are made by them, reflecting who's giving them the money. Okay? So you are a republic. Also, we are in this country a constitutional dictatorship. Constitutional dictatorship is when you have a constitution, we do, and the President of the United States, and you look at the Constitution, they give the President of the United States the authority to make rules. Those rules are called executive orders. So if they pass an executive order, like Roosevelt said, you got to give up all your gold. Congress didn't. Congress was supposed to make the rule up to give up the gold. He made it up. So if you go and you look on the internet and you get a list of all the executive orders. Executive orders are statements and law rule statements written up by the presidency. He or she don't write it, but somebody's writing it. The presidency says that we're going to cut all of the drilling for oil. That's executive order by what's the guy who's in here now? Biden.
Sleepy.
He wrote, the presidency wrote that. The Congress is supposed to. So you have a dual republic and a constitutional democracy. And on the lower half of the second page, I re-emphasize what we said. Without Africa, Europe, you feed Europe and China. Gas, coal, oil, wood, food, fertilizer, mineral, uranium. Let's go to page 3. We gave this to you the last time, but we reinforce it on page 3. It's 2 maps. The upper map is a map that shows the Sahel. Those are the nations we talk about the Sahel. And that is, let's go the other way. The country that split, Sudan. Okay, Sudan, Chad, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, and Senegal. That strip. In that map, those X marks represent areas where the United States, they tell you on the information, where they admit they got biolabs. Biolabs. Germs, diseases, and stuff like that. And I asked the question, do any African country have biolabs in the United States? The second map indicates the round circles where the United States has military bases. Do African countries have military bases in the United States? No. But the Africans are getting rid of the U.S. military bases. They're getting rid of the French bases. And now they're getting rid of the US bases. One of the major bases in Nigeria, the United States was a surveillance, you know, they send the drones up and planes up. And from there, if you look at the map, you see where Nigeria is here? The United States, out of that surveillance base, is able to see almost the upper quarter of what the Africans are doing. That base was put there by the president of Nigeria, who was removed. Now, what's the significance of this base here? If you look here, this one here, that's Libya. The United States invaded, killed the president of Libya.
That's right.
Stole the gold, stole all their silver, cut the aquifer dam coming out of the desert, and stole Libya's oil. And those people they put in there put us under slavery. You can thank the United States of America, you can thank the CIA, you can thank Obama, you can thank it. They invaded Libya in 2011 and they finished Libya off in 2012. So if you look at the top there, what appeared in this Sahel region, the Sahel region, they're fighting jihadists, a group of people disrupting the community. They disrupted. These jihadists appeared in the Sahel in 2012. In other words, the United States destroyed Libya, and then 1 year after they finished destroying it from 2011 to 2012, all of a sudden you had armed men, jihadists, jeeps, machine guns, disrupting and invading all of these Sahel nations. They were put there. They appeared there after the United States and they don't destroy Libya. And that's what the Sahel nations are fighting these people. It's as if someone put a group of armed men in Canada and they just periodically come and invade Massachusetts and Canada. That's what they appeared there. So now these African countries will go another lecture. Are in the process of getting rid of the US bases. Let's go to the 4th page. We've got 1, 2 more pages to go. This is here. We're going to read it. We're going to break for a quick break. We'll look at this book and question and answer, because the question and answer is the most important. BRICS. BRICS represents 5 countries. You can look it up, but okay, what are the BRICS? The BRICS is an economic organization of 5 countries. It was first 4, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Then in 2010, they added on Africa, South Africa. And this year, 2024, these 5 countries, they added on 5. Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates. This is a list of some of the countries who want to join. What does every one of these countries have in common? They're all non-white, except for Russia. Some of the applicants, they're meeting in Russia and Kazan in June, and they're going to see who else they pull in. Algeria, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Bolivia, Cuba, Kazakhstan, Kuwait, Pakistan, Senegal, others, Afghanistan, Angola, Comoros, Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Mexico, Nicaragua, Sudan, Syria, Tunisia, Turkey, etc. What is this BRICS? It's a union of non-white countries. That's the overall best I can put it. Except for one white country, is Russia. And they realize that if they're going to survive, they're going with the non-whites. The BRICS, just these 5 countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, since their inception around 2010, they now have 34% of the global economy. The G7, which represent white colonists who enslaved the Africans, who enslaved the Central and South America, enslaved the Indians, the Chinese. That's that group. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, UK, US, and they threw in Japan. They used to run the world since 1944 to 2020. They don't run it anymore. And why this G7 was so powerful? Because they control all of your natural resources. We're going to go to this side. The BRICS. What are they working on? De-dollarization. Their economic union, a multiple world bank. What they're saying is we don't want to use the US dollar anymore. Because the US dollar, we don't want to use it anymore. So they're getting rid of the US. They're trading now among themselves. All of these countries here were colonies. And we'll go through it quickly there.
That's what Gaddafi wanted to do?
Pardon me?
That's what Gaddafi wanted to do? Get away from the dollar?
Yes. Gaddafi was at that time, the head of the African Union, and he proposed with Egypt and the 4 or 5 other countries to pool their gold and oil and use it to back a currency. Why? The countries are saying, why should I do trade with everybody here? But this brother here, that's the United States. This is the rest of the world. We'll go through the Bretton Woods if we get a chance, we'll see. After 1944, the way they restructured it, that everybody doing any world trade has to use the US dollar. So the rest of the world had to use the US dollar in 1944. Okay, I have to just describe the Bretton Woods quickly. I can't go, I got it so you understand it. Okay, I'll do it after we finish this page. So the BRICS, what are they now saying? Supply public or private projects through guaranteed loan. So to go through it quickly, the BRICS was, so let's do the Bretton Woods. Gotta explain quickly the Bretton Woods. After World War II was just about over, 1945, I wrote it here, but I got it. 1945, the United States and Britain got together and said, we're going to call a conference. Because Britain was the big colonists at that time. They were dying and the United States was coming up. So they met in Bretton Woods up in New Hampshire. They called a conference. And in that conference, United States was beginning to set up a global dominant structure to take over from UK, England. At the time they were meeting, all of what you call Africa, these 54, 55 countries, of these 55 countries, in the Bretton Woods Conference in New Hampshire, there were 44 countries that attended. They sat down. Of the 44 countries, when you break it down, they came from Asia, Europe, the Caribbean, Central and South America. And you see the list. Of the 44 countries sitting at this global conference to determine how the world is going to run, only 4 was from Africa. 44 countries, 4 African countries sat down in that conference. So that means in that 40, or 38, or 40, 38, or whatever it was not. And what were those African countries that sat down? Ethiopia sat in. They were the only independent African country. South Africa sat in, but it was under white. Liberia sat in, but it was under the United States. And Egypt sat in, and it was under Britain. So you had nothing to do with it. There's only a few states, all of these countries now you see here, they didn't sit because they were all colonized.
Right.
So you have a conference among 2 white people, 2 cousins, about how the world will run, and all of these countries, none of these countries sit. The only countries that sat from Asia, the biggest one was the Soviet Union, was Chiang Kai-shek from communist China, from the nationalist China.
Right.
So they're having a conference, and only, of this map now, only 4 countries were sitting, the African countries, and they were all under European, except for Ethiopia. There are countries from Central America, the Caribbean, South America, they were all colonies of the United States. So they decided how the world was going to run. And in the process, they got together, it was United States, Britain, they got together and decided that all of the global trade is going to be done in the US dollar. But what global trade is he talking about? All of the global trade he's talking about is raw materials and materials from Africa. He ain't none from the United States. They're trading, there's none from Europe. Everything they're trading, gold, coal, oil, whatever it is, it's coming from one of the colonies. So, at that time, the last page will show you what the British and the white America, their cousins, what they decided to come up with, the New World Order, how the world is going to run. Remember, Caribbean, here, they were all colonies of these white countries, United States, and England, and France. And so let's do the last page. The Bretton Woods Conference, July 1, 1944 to July 22. It was at Omni Mount Washington Resort, that's in New Hampshire. The official title was the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference. 730 delegates, 44 allied nations. All of the countries that attended was a colony of one of England, France, or United States. And this is what they decided. They're going to set up, in other words, United States, France, England, those 3 ones had most of the world, stealing from most of the world as colonies. But they're going to set up, after World War II, 3 things: political, economic, and military. That's what they set up, political, economic, and military. The structure they're going to use to continue to steal from everybody and to keep everybody as a colony. So this is what they came up with. The economic part to dominate who? That they are talking about, we're going to dominate all of these countries. Remember, at that time, these countries were no independence. Same thing with Cuban vessel. The World Bank and IMF, everybody had to borrow from the World Bank and IMF. The US dollar would be the global currency. So that meant that anybody who was doing trade had to use the US dollar. But that didn't apply to African because who was trading Africans with raw material? United States, England, and France. They were controlling, trading your stuff. So the BRICS is an attempt at pooling countries together so that they don't have to borrow from the IMF and World Bank to keep you in debt, just like most of us that lock us down in this country. And now that the country is de-industrialized and structured the country where most of the people are locked down in credit, student loan or whatever it is. That's the economic dominance to you. So that's what BRICS is saying, hey, we have an alternate bank. You don't have to go to these people. The military was the United States and NATO. It's called rule-based world order. Since 1949 up to now, United States and NATO have been invading countries. United States has invaded and had military intervention almost 200 times in the last 20 years. The rules-based order, our United States and NATO, white people, we're going to tell the rest of the world, anytime there's a trouble, we go in here and we're going to do it. That's the military intervention. So they're going to dominate you by you having to have to borrow money from their bank and they lock you down in debt. Then when you don't do like I want done, we invade you. That's where the coups come from, when they kill the Mumba and they kill this one and that one. That was that period. That white people, United States and NATO, we have the big gun. We go around any place, invade anybody. That's what all the wars was about. And politically, they created the United Nations. It was created by these white people. I'm not saying it was their original idea. And in the United Nations, there are, if you look down to your left, there are 6 major committees. The General Assembly, where everybody gets to sit. The Economic and Social Council. International Court of Justice. The Secretariat. The Trustee, and the United Nations Secretariat. Now we all know about the Security Council, right? In the whole structure of the UN, the Security Council is the council that sits and determines what happens around the world between countries. Disputes. Who's going to resolve all the disputes? United States and NATO. That's what they've been doing for the last 40 or 50 years. So of the 6 committees, the most important committee that deals with international law and order is the Security Council. And who's on the Security Council? France, the permanent members. England, UK, United States, the 3 white, all colonists. They had to put on this big country, you call it Russia, but it was called the Soviet Union at that point, because Russia had taken over countries. And the other one was China. So these white folks sat down and said, we're going to structure the UN. They structured it. And the most important committee that deals with international law, who's going to invade, how do you resolve issues, is the Security Council. Because they're the ones who resolve it. And who's on the Security Council? White people make up 4% of the world's population. And they're going to tell the rest of the world, we the policemen. Security Council, UK, England, US, France, 3 whites. And they put on China, which is Chiang Kai-shek, which was the nationalist fighting the communists, and they put on the Soviet Union. On the bottom of the last one, China and Russia got a surprise for your Westerners. China and Russia, the BRICS, when you see them meeting, they're talking about economics. They're talking about how we're going to get away from using the dollar. As one of the bloggers said, white blogger, older man, gentleman, if you can call him that, 82, he was in the CIA and everything. He says, they talk about a multipolar world. A unipolar world, the white people made up is we run the world. Who's the unipolar world? Who's running the unipolar? The United States and Europe. United States and NATO. The rest of the world said, no, it ain't gonna be that way. We're going to group together, and each of us, the Africans are going to run their part of the world, the Asians are going to run their part of the world, they're going to run their part. It's all over. You used to run this, you used to run this, you used to run this, you're no longer going to run it. Because we're getting out together economically, and we have weapons. So now, to counteract the World Bank and IMF controlling you economically, you now can go to the BRICS Bank. To politically, many of the countries have met in 2014, the Chilean, these non-white countries, which is most of the world, they're going to make a whole new UN. Let the white people do that. But the last piece that Russia, that BRICS said, we joining together, we're controlling most of the world's natural resources, we're getting rid of the US dollar, we're going to barter and trade among ourselves, not use the US dollar. But how do you deal with the military part? When NATO and the United States running around beating up on everybody, China got an answer for you. Russia. It is stated, I'm not saying that it is stated that Russia and China will assist any country attacked by the United States or the West if that attack disturbs international peace, order, and security. So if that statement is correct, China and Russia has put United States and NATO on notice call stating that you're not going to run around the world causing any problem. So what that means, as I conclude for the Sahel nations, these Sahel nations, these three, they're getting rid of the French, getting rid of the US, and using Russia, China, other African countries to help them build their military. So in the case, to tell you, as we ended, when Niger was a coup, and they kicked out the French, the United States and Europe wanted to intervene into Niger and put back Bazoum, the president. But they didn't want to directly intervene because it doesn't look good, white troops fighting in Africa. Plus, the United States is so militarily weak, they would have lost it anyhow. So what? The United States and the West went to ECOWAS and asked ECOWAS to invade Niger to overthrow the coup. Why Niger? Because Niger has rich supplies of uranium, and that uranium was supplying the electricity for 1/3 of Europe. The President Bazoum was selling Niger's uranium for 80 cents a kilo, when the world market was $200 a kilo. U.S. built their big bases in Niger, which is illegal on their constitution. So, the threat of invasion in Ghana, in Nigeria, especially the president, the Tinubu in Nigeria, wanted to get ECOWAS, which is an economic bloc, get together to invade Niger to replace a president who is selling your uranium for 80 cents a kilo when he's supposed to be selling it for $200. A president who's allowing the gold, these countries are fabulously rich in gold, the gold nuggets, to be given to France for nothing, and then the French refine it and make 2,000%. A president who allows U.S. have military bases. Do you think the United States would stand for a president who allows somebody to come in and build a military base, take away the natural resources? So the United States and France wanted Nigeria and Ecuador to invade Nigeria. Replace the leader who's giving away the gold, giving away the uranium, and giving away military bases. We need an election. What good is having? How do you want any kind of president leader that doesn't take care of people? We got it here in the United States. So what did they do? Because Mali and Burkina Faso had a coup. So these three countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, got together. And Mali and Burkina Faso, who did the same thing as Nigeria previously, got rid of the French. They formed a union, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. These two countries, Mali said to the United States and Ecuador. And the two countries that were ready to invade Niger was Nigeria and Ghana. There's something about Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. Have they been delivering to their people what they should deliver? Which is another question. But they were the ones, we gotta go on, we gotta get Bassoum back in. So Mali and Burkina Faso and Niger, they formed a union, military union. If you attack one, you attack all of us. Right. So president of the Nigerian and the Ghanaian president, wherever they got their orders from, they said, back up, wait a second, if we go in here, the president of, what's the name, of Nigeria, Tinubu, he was in the office 2 months and he's ready to put a military, send the military in there and overthrow Nigeria. Everybody in this area live every place. They're all your cousins, uncle. The Senate of Nigeria told the president, you just had 2 months, you want to go to war? No, we're not giving you the authority to go to war. The Nigerian military said, we're not going to war to kill our brothers and sisters next door. So, France asked Algeria to allow French military airplanes to cross over Algeria to attack Niger. Why Niger? Because the 1/3 of the electricity for everything in Europe comes from here. Algeria says, we're not going to allow you, French, America, nobody overfly our area to attack Nigeria. You did it to Libya. Had Russia been strong, the Russia today, if they had that military power, Gaddafi would be here. Because Russia at that point wasn't strong enough to check the U.S. But okay, so they want to think of the Pentagon. They're all planning. How are you going to overthrow Nigeria when you got 2 other countries pledge their military? Because Burkina Faso and Mali, when they got rid of the French, they now have fighter jets, helicopters, drones, 50,000 men under arms. So, the United States and the West wanted the Ecuador, primarily Ghana and Nigeria, to go in and invade, to put back a president that's given everything away. So they said, we got to put this invasion on hold. Why? Because these 3 countries are going to work together. They're pooling their resources. Plus, we can't go over here because Algeria stated that any attack on Niger, they're intervening on the behalf of Niger. So now, this Pentagon, everybody said, wait now, we can't go in because the Nigerian government is not allowing the Nigerian president to go in. The Nigerian military said they're not going in. Then you got the Mali and Burkina Faso pooling their resources. Now Algeria said, I'm coming in to defend Nigeria because we're not going to let the United States and France create another mess like you did to Libya. That's Pan-Africanism. See? That's why they didn't go into Nigeria. So in effect, you have three countries of the Sahel, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. They're in the military alliance like the United States is in the NATO. Algeria, which is the third biggest army in Africa, the biggest army in Africa, they say on power, planes in South Africa. No, Egypt is the biggest military. South Africa is number 2. Nigeria is number 3, and Algeria. So Nigeria, if it can't go up against that, they back down. So these three countries are linked in the military alliance. They also, Chad is going to join the Sahel. You have the Sahel. Three countries are considering fusing as one country. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Now Chad is added. They're coming in. Soon as Sudan, that's what I was trying to remember. Soon as Sudan finish whatever they got, their civil war, Sudan is coming in a confederation. And Senegal may come in, and Mali. So what you're going to have is these 5 or 6 countries which were fractured, torn apart, resources stolen by the French and U.S., they now are in a military pact. 1, 2, 3. Chad is coming in. 4. Sudan will come in. 5. 6. 7. You're going to have a solid plus Algeria. And later on we'll go through what they actually are doing to develop. So that's the importance of the Sahel. And if Africa, as Brother Nana Dix, one of our elders said, shut down Africa. If you shut down Africa, nothing comes out. That's gone, and China's gone. See, the United States still can steal from Central and South America. Okay, we conclude. Let's do the question and answer. And then after you go to your official break, I want to read this one little section of the book that I just shot.
Say what?
Whenever you want to officially break, I just want to read a short clip from this book, but not on the tape, video. You're not videoing it, right? Tell me when you're not
No,
videoing.
I'm gonna cut it off now.
And then we go back.
You gotta shut that down too.
Huh?
You gotta shut the Zoom down too.
Well, as long as they don't hear.
They're gonna hear.
They're gonna hear. You gotta shut the Zoom down.
See, because it's not no big deal, but you don't want them to use that
No,
excuse.
what's the
God,
It's in reference to Israel and what's happening over there. You don't want them to use that excuse.
Yeah, but if you shut it down,
shut the Zoom.
you can't shut the Zoom.
If you don't want anything out, then don't say it while these things are on.
Well, you can mute the Zoom if it just won't like.
Now, once the camera's on, people gonna read lips, it's gonna show
Yeah.
the book, Doc, forget it.
No, you
Just
see,
show
you
the
don't
book
want
again.
to, what's happening over there in Israel and stuff. This government is very sensitive, so we don't want them to use that as an excuse.
Show the book at the end, Doc, kill it from the,
Okay,
presentation.
so let's take your 5-minute break or do whatever you
Show
want.
the
or
book
you go
and
right
say,
to
get
question
to-
No,
and
don't
answer.
show the book.
Let's just go right into the Q&A.
Go right down.
Okay, let's go right into the Q&A.
On the screen, you can cut the video and
So, Gregory, you let them know when they're in the Q&A.
Okay, we're gonna do Q&A. Give Dr. Radio and Alexa. All right, the first question is gonna be from the Zoom audience. Anybody from the Zoom audience have a question for Dr. Lewis? Going once. Going twice. Going 3 3 times. No question from the Zoom. Our next question is from the floor. From the floor. Again, Ralph.
You said that the president of Niger is gone. And so are we to assume that there is no uranium going into France at this point?
So this is the latest information that you can gather that they're giving to you. Bassoum was allowing what we're learning this. Me and others are. There was an index produced by one of the companies. And the company, I'll get the name, did an index and calculated that in the last 50 years, I don't know how they come up with this, 50 years, at least $1 trillion worth of Africa's wealth left the country, left Africa, not through normal trade, illicit illegality. 1 trillion over a 50-year period of illegal, illicit wealth. 3% of that was a result of what you call no good leaders, the sellout leaders. 3%. 3%. Everybody, oh, the African leaders, they so corrupt. We know a certain amount of them are corrupt. Why did Bk-Mackey, the president of Senegal, they say, after they swore in the young brother, Faye, he got on the plane 3 hours, 2 hours later. What's he running from? Let's look at that audit. So it is that type of leadership in Africa, for whatever reason, that this organization calculated that of the $1 trillion Africa lost in 50 years, illegally, only 3% came from the corrupt leaders. They calculate 25 or 30% came from drug smuggling and drugs and illegal smuggling. 60 to 65% of the illegal wealth drained from Africa came as a result of foreign companies taking 65% of your wealth illegally. Of course, people like President Bassoum allow them to go with the thing. So you say, well, why is it that Africa is in, it's like having a house that's wrecked. Africa's got a beautiful house, but it's kind of wrecked. Wrecked only to the concept that you don't have the water like you should, you don't have the food. They disrupted everything. But now you're putting it back together. You're going to have a beautiful mansion like you had before they came for the slave trade. You had a beautiful house before they came for the slave trade and killed down tens of millions of you, if not hundreds of millions of you. So that puts another light on it. Oh, your problem just isn't because this president, that president. And what you have is most of everybody on the Sahel, they're all young. 35, 40, 45. And they're going to do right. We can talk about that before. So that kind of dispels that. And so when you look at the record and when we go in deeper, it is Bassoum, I use Bassoum, who was the president removed from Niger as a classic example. You mean to tell me you don't have your ministers or nobody? The new president of Senegal, Faye, and then the Sahel, they're going to do audit. He just coming in, we audited everything. Everything is open. We've set it up so anybody want to report corruption. There are 11 ministers, 4 are women. The women in Senegal got the portfolio for finance, agriculture, education, and health. Not tucked away to you sit behind the counter and Smedley Butler told you classic. That's how it works. That's how they work in here. So the new group of young people people are getting rid of. They're cleaning house. And we can make a list. You get rid of the French, you get rid of the U.S., you close down their bases, you bring in Russia, China, Iran, other African countries, you're collaborating. And in this country, like most, they tell you, Smelly Butler tell you, the professors will tell you, you ain't worth SHIT to the people who run it. You're nothing.
Right.
You're nothing.
Next question.
Quick.
Yeah, how is these investment cartels like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, how they impacting on world economy?
Well, let me put it to you this way. That company, you can look at the name, the two French companies, who Bassoon, the president, their contracts allow them to take out the uranium for 80 cents a kilo. You put it on the truck and take it out. Now the new leadership, and this is going to should happen in every African country, no far you look at all of the contracts. So what Burkina Faso said, okay, we'll still sell you uranium, but now you're going to pay. Your companies are going to pay $200 a kilo instead of you taking out our uranium for 80 cents. You know what kind of economic burden that put us. So you stopping at that. Then they wrote the thing. All of that uranium over all the years that you got for 8 cents, we're calculating up and you're going to pay us all back. That's going to break France. And for all of those who want to know where the white folks will give you back all of they stole from you in your museums, you just tell them. If you don't send everything back in your museums, you're not getting any more food. You're not going to get any more uranium. So remember, when that French company was making a killing, getting the uranium for 80 cents, you think you can go into a store and will have a watch or some appliance that's selling for $30, $200, the salesperson will give it to you for 80 cents? That's the theft that these foreign companies for years have been put on Africa. That's the theft. That's the modern theft. And now they're cutting it all down. So now, Niger, the Russians are coming in. They're training. They're bringing equipment. They're giving them aerial prevention. They're setting up. They now can go to Russia. And Russia is setting up with Turkey and others, state-of-the-art military, machine guns, jet fighters, attack helicopters, rockets. They're getting little air things. So Burkina Faso, these countries are the fastest growing countries for the year 2024, the fastest growing countries in the world are these. They have fabulous wealth. None of these countries have gold bullion storage. France got a lot. So what they're doing now is, that's what they do with the uranium. What they're doing now is Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, they stop the gold nuggets from going out. Because you would sell it for $1 and then some European company, white country would take that gold nuggets and make the blocks, make $1,000. So these countries are all getting refineries to refine your gold. The gold is not going out. They're going to get refineries to refine uranium. They're not going out. That's what you call value added. So the wealth in the United States are what they are because of the theft. I asked the question, where did the copper, rubber, cement, and rocks come to rebuild Europe after World War II? Where did all of the uranium and all of the copper and everything come for the United States to rebuild South Korea? Africa. to my wife, Wilmington, North Carolina, and 30 or 40 years ago, after we got off New Jersey Turnpike, there was no turnpike. There was just a dirt road. This country just got what you think, what you call mine. I heard some brothers on the radio.
They're in the front, Doc.
Okay, I heard some brothers on the radio, they just came back from Ghana. And boy, you gotta be glad of what we got here that the Ghanaians don't have. Like this, and this, and this, and this. And you say, where these guys, where they old? 40, 45, what the hell do they know? Where did they go? They weren't around. When I used to, you go back to Wilmington, North Carolina on a damn dirt road. They don't know this country just got it. Where did the United States get it from? We know where they got it from. It is the wealth of Africa that built this place, that built Europe, Japan, Taiwan, China, and this country. My friend said to me, what do you say? The immigrants built America. I said, what are you talking about? The immigrants. You mean the 150 million Europeans who left Europe from 1850 to 1929? They built the United States? Trump's grandfather built the United States? Why did they all wait to get here to be billionaires? By the time that mass of European came here, to take the land, the Africans already, you built all of the dikes, the dams, you built the ship, you know, where the docking.
Ports.
You built the damn place before the Europeans came. That's why you were brought here, for skilled and unskilled labor. Oh, now the immigrants. I won't say name the president so that they don't bother me. The president, one of the people running for president who used to be president once and trying to get president, his grandfather, they say, came here at 16 years of age and 18 something. And he lived with his sister downtown Manhattan. He was a barber. That's what the stories say when you look up on that president's grandfather. And then he went out west to California, Washington. And he made his money on prostitution, gambling, drugs, etc. So the stories say, after he made his wealth there, then he came back to New York, and then went to Germany. There was no Germany, wasn't unified as a Germany. And he asked, so the story said, that grandfather asked the ruling class in Germany or wherever it was, he's coming back and he wants his wealth to live well. They checked the record. So the story said, you a draft dodger. You left here at 16 to avoid military service. I would too. Germany is at war. Europe is at war. So that's why so many of them migrated, because of wars and the lack of food and stuff. So they said, oh no, you're a draft dodger. Go back to the United States. So I asked the question, which of your billionaires were billionaire before? Why you wait to come here? You got this fabulously big, rich area called the United States of America. You exterminate the people who get it, and then when you bring in your white indentured servants from the United States, then you bring in your white slaves, the Irish and stuff were slaved here before they took us here. The indentured servants, they had revolts. So the king said, we can't use these white people because they're not strong enough and they're revolting, so they came to get us. And then when we did too many revolts in the United States and the Caribbean, the white man said to the British, you can't send no more African people. So in your Constitution, United States, you'll see in 1808, the King of England abolished slavery. But abolished slavery of only Africans, but the slavery of what those people in India or Pakistan, they remain slaves. So that's how the so-called Indians in Pakistan, how you get this journey there? How you get the other country? How do you get into Fiji? I go to Fiji, half the country is Fiji. So they don't want you to know how this thing works. As I tell people, and I tell my children, I'm like any one of you, I have to take care of my family the best way that I can. You must take care of your family. Then, if you got time, you broaden your struggle on the city level. Then you fight on the state level. And then you do what? You have to choose your fights. So, what is now happening is Africa is rapidly developing when Europe is going down. Europe is now dropping, they're in a semi-depression. Why? Because a lot of the things we said, the gold, the food, the coal, etc., the Africans are withholding that for their own development. So Europe has been hit double. Europe was getting their needs met from two areas. Let me move from there.
5 more minutes, Doc.
Okay. What they were stealing from Africa, they had to buy from Russia. The gold, the oil, the gas, the wood, the coal. They had to buy that from Russia. But they stole it from us. That's why Russia, we presented one time, they tried to invade Russia. They went in 1918, after the First World War, the United States, and the French, and the same people who are bothering Russia now, they tried to go in, they went into Russia fighting the Bolsheviks when they had that. So what Europe needs, they were stealing out of Africa, they were getting the same thing out of Russia, but they had to pay. Oil, gas, coal, and wood. Food, fertilizer, minerals, and uranium. That's what makes an industrial country. That's what made Europe what it was. Because you were stealing it from us and you had to pay from Russia. Now you're cutting yourself off from Russia. And if you look at the things, you'll see the rapid decline.
All right. Okay.
You got one, brother.
We got one more question. One more. Anybody from the Zoom got a question? All right, Michael, last question.
Okay, Doc, you mentioned earlier that at least 2/3 of the arable land in the world is right there in Africa.
But that's the statistics that everybody agreed with. 65%.
And I agree with it because I know that Ghana can feed half of Africa with its land mass alone.
Right.
Just Ghana by itself can feed probably half of Africa. My question to you is, will there be a reversal with respect to going from so-called cash crops to food that can feed, all of Africa as opposed to a cash crop like tobacco and things like coffee or what have you, to food, to actually being able to feed the nation building food?
Well, whatever the Africans was doing before the Arabs came, and whatever Africa was doing before the European came, it fed tens of millions of us, hundreds of millions. The Africans know everything came from us. They know what they have to do. So for instance, Burkina Faso, let's just say these countries here. The reason the agriculture is not up, because once when they get the dam in, and you get the water management, and you get water storage, what they did was just slowed you down. Simple as that. Whatever way Africa is going to develop, they're going to develop. They did it before, they're going to do it again. These young brothers and sisters who are running these countries now, they're taking care of the infrastructure, the roads, the water, food, agriculture. Okay? We're here, we struggle, we do the best we can, they're over there. And people say, why? The strength and the survival of the Chinese race is in big China. If they're going to make it. The strength and survival of the African world globally is going to be in the continent. People think, if they're 1.4 billion, they say if everything continues, 1/3 of all the people on earth will be in Africa, whether you like it or not. The largest group of Africans outside of Africa is India. 1/3 of India is us. We don't have power. Another big chunk is in Brazil, whether you give them 90,000, 900,000, whatever it is, and then us. We all over the place. You're in the Caribbean, just like it was before the Europeans got on the scene. Most of the world was people of color. Most of the world was us. So we will struggle and take care of ourselves, and the Africans will struggle and take care of themselves. But what is good is they now have an opportunity to get the assistance they need militarily and nation building wise, because you're getting the Europeans and Americans off your back. That's the primary reason. Thank God at this point for Russia, China, and Turkey and others to give you what you need to get rid of these people. Africa was doing all right before they came.
Why do that? You think that's it? That's it? That's it, Kim?
Okay? That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Give Dr. a big hand.
Doc.
Okay. Give Dr. a great big hand. Okay, we'll cut the camera of the Dr. Zoom.
Doc, don't do that yet. Don't do that.
Doc, I got to cut the camera off.
Cut the camera and the Zoom.